Okay, we're live. So,
In three,
yeah, that was my experience with the massage, is that any good deed can't go unpunished.
back feeling. Is it feeling better?
It's better. It's much better than it was. They gave me some exercises to do in order to get the muscles, but like, oh, my back was a mess.
How are you feeling at work today when you went home?
What's that?
You said you went home early from work, or
Oh, I
is
didn't
that what
even
you
go
said?
in. No, I
Oh, you
slept
didn't. You
until
didn't go to the
noon.
office. Oh, you had a 3-day weekend. I forgot. Yesterday was a holiday.
Yes, Martin Luther King Day, which John McCain hates.
Why does John McCain hate Martin Luther King Day?
Well, he's a racist in that vein of how Barry Goldwater was, because they're both from
Arizona.
Arizona. Yeah, so
Right. But yeah, I mean, you get how Trump is a racist and hates Martin Luther King Day. That's why he played golf yesterday. But
right.
McCain, figure, okay, he's probably a halfway decent human being.
Well,
I'd
I
like
think you're giving him a little bit too much credit, but sure,
to.
okay.
I don't know. I guess he was tortured, so I feel bad. I feel like I want to think he's a halfway decent human being.
Well, he should not have been tortured.
Right. I don't think I wasn't saying that you favored him being tortured.
No, but at the same time, I don't think that makes
Qualifies
him
him as
automatically a good person.
no. Boy, did you watch any of the screeners? I know. What did you say? You watched something? I know you watched something. I finally caught up with a whole bunch of stuff.
I only have
So,
one
lady,
left of my screeners, is The Shape of Water. I watched all the other ones that we got, so.
watched Shape of Water last night. I loved it, but I'll be very curious as to know how you feel. I think it could go either way.
Without spoilers, you loved it. It was just great, or it was good, or
I loved it. I thought it was a terrific movie. It was really entertaining, and I just didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did.
very cool.
I thought
I,
I thought I had problems with it, but I didn't have any at all. It was terrific.
Nice. And Lady Bird. That was my favorite of all the films that I've seen in this slew of SAG videos.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a very hard time determining which of Lady Bird, Shape of Water, and Three Billboards that I think is the best acting of the year. I thought all three movies were terrific, and I couldn't find any problems with any acting in any of them. So really, three really good films.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. You don't usually, with all these award nonsense every year. You never think of it as like, oh, that was just an amazing performance. But these were like I Tanya, the
Mm-hmm.
movie
That's
Call Me by
fine.
Your Name. All these movies had incredible performances, and then the movies were kind of hit or miss. Like sometimes the movie
Yeah.
wasn't as good as the performance that was in it, and that's amazing when that happens,
I also saw a Disaster Artist this weekend.
which is great.
And again, another just a terrific performance. I mean, say what you will about James Franco, that's a really good acting job he did there. That's a really good job.
Yeah, you forget sometimes because he does so many things that are just
Mhm.
garbage, and all of his art school nonsense that he does. But when I saw it, a month or two ago, it's one
Mhm.
of his best performances.
Oh, easily. And the film is also vastly more entertaining than you'd give it credit for. It's a really fun film to watch.
Yeah. Did you watch The Room? Have you seen the movie it's based on?
And you know what? I thought before I saw The Disaster Artist that it would probably be necessary to enjoy it more, and it clearly is not necessary to enjoy it more. I mean, I've seen bad movies. I've seen bad cult films before. I don't feel necessarily the need to go and see another one.
That's interesting because yeah, it's in talking to friends of mine. All the people who did see The Disaster Artist were people who saw The Room, so we were all
Mhm.
interested in finding someone who hadn't seen it and if they would still enjoy The Disaster Artist.
I found it had nothing to do with the Room. It's such a good movie. It's a really fun film.
Cool. So,
I guess
to
this
come
the
off of that love
you know
fest, let's talk about
Oscar to not even winning television. This is episode 6, season 6, episode 18. The Spirit is 18. Is that what you have? Is that what it is? With the double episode? I don't know.
Yeah, it's 18.
Spirit of Columbus. Which, you know, once again, I have a feeling you and I are both going to, I forgive Scott Valentine right off the bat.
Oh gosh, yeah. His performance in this is great. There are two
Just fine.
performances in this episode that I found some issues with. One, Michael J. Fox has circles under his eyes. I think he's a little sick. I think he has a cold, because he seems very low key throughout the episode.
The whole episode feels low key to me. It feels minimal effort on everyone's part. If they even sat around and tried to make sense out of some of this bullshit, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and on that, Elise Meredith Baxter's performance in this, she seems actively angry in this episode.
There are moments I questioned her completely. I just didn't understand. Yeah, I have one right off the bat. Yeah, I have one right off the bat where I just think she's angry. Anyway, Spirit of Columbus begins in the Eaton kitchen. We find the B plot, but I think I'm gonna have to go for it's like a D or an E plot of Andy thinks he's a dog.
What the fuck? Let's say that again. This small plot that runs the length of this scene and then right into the next scene is Andy thinks he's a dog because he likes a dog food commercial.
Right. So, and that makes perfectly good sense. How many times have you seen a commercial about an animal and then just transform yourself into that animal and then it just stops, or we never hear from him again, or Andy was kidnapped or something happened? It's just ridiculous. The whole thing is ridiculous. And once again, Brian Bonsall, who pulls it off very nicely.
He actually does. I had no problem with him throughout all of this craziness. He was actually committed to it. And he had some energy with what he was doing. I actually think that he did a great job with it.
I totally agree. And I find it ridiculous that I have no problems with Brian Bonsall.
Yeah.
He's just fine. He pulls off this miserable material. So, but what's really funny, first of all, thank God orange juice appears at the very top of the episode, right from the get-go.
Lots of orange juice.
Yes, a lot of, and not only a pitcher of orange juice, but lots of people drinking orange juice in the scene.
Corey, if I may sort of get a little deep here, it almost is like the idea that you can take something lovely like orange juice and then give it to everybody who wants it. And you lose something when you mass produce something like orange juice. Like when you get an orange and you squeeze it and you take the love and the time to squeeze an orange into a glass and take out the seeds and take out the pulp, and then you drink it, you're like, this is delicious. But then when a company does that, and they make it into concentrate so it lasts longer, and put it into refrigerated trucks to transport into places where maybe they don't have the climate to have oranges grow throughout a year. And then you put it and you bottle it up or put it into a cardboard thing, and then people can buy it in a store and you drink it. It doesn't taste as good. And I think that's what they were doing. I think that's what they were doing right here.
That was a beautiful microcosm. Spirit of Columbus, Season 6, Episode 18 of Family Ties. Yep, that's what this whole episode's about. So good night. Take care. Where are the credits? You got them up already?
And you know what? That explanation makes it sound like this episode's going to be really interesting.
And instead, let's go with the fact that because right from the get-go here, Elise seems angry. The first thing she seems angry at is acting like a dog. Now, while irritating myself in a sitcom, would you find that anger making? She's like, stop it, act like a dog. Creative. He's not destroying any. It's not like he's lifting his leg and urinating on the kitchen table.
No, she's like in a different thing. She's like in like a John Patrick Shanley play or something compared to everybody else.
Big in this episode. I don't quite get it. Thankfully, this scene is interrupted by the wonderful Nick entering with Mallory. They just got back from a flea market and an art show. One of his pieces. And here's one of those classic Family Ties moment where let's spend time fun of someone's art. Now, there's plenty of art world. It's art. It's not my cup of tea, and you move on to the next thing. But Alex is going to fucking browbeat Nick, which I happen to think are fairly interesting.
Yes, we've said this before. Corey, you know people who do found art, and that it's something that you enjoy, both the ones that you've received and Nick's on Family Ties.
Yes, my ex-brother-in-law, and I have two ex-brother-in-laws who did sculpture like that, and I just think they're very interesting pieces. In a museum, I like to look at. I don't have any problem, but Alex always has an issue with, and thankfully it's explored in this episode to a totally unsatisfying conclusion. But it is explored that Alex hates the idea of art. He hates what artists do. He hates the fact that artists don't have a clear path to success or financial happiness. He hates all that.
Yeah, it's his complete opposite. So that makes sense. That's fine. But his ridicule constantly, when confronted with it, is weird, and it gets tiring quickly.
Yes. And has been covered on the show in multiple episodes. And in this episode, they spend almost the entire 24 minutes discussing art and how Alex thinks, basically, like you said before, how art should be mass produced. Any rational human being would know that would suck the life out of art. It's no longer art if it's being mass produced. Let's make some joke about Nick, about 4 truckloads of functioning brain matter. Joke.
I missed that part. Was it funny or was it bad?
It was bad. It was just another one of those tired, let's make fun of Nick and Mallory. And then Nick is selling his art, and Mallory have a nest egg for when they, which of course, freaks the Keatons.
I mean, you want to talk about the dog thing being a D plot? The B plot of this episode are 2 words: nest egg. I've never heard the term nest egg so many times in my life in 24 minutes.
Now, when you did hear the term nest egg, is there a famous movie scene that comes to mind with the word nest egg in it?
What would it? No, I can't think of it. What is it?
Albert Brooks's Made in America.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that.
When she loses all the money in the casino in Vegas, and then Julie Haggerty has to go back and tell Albert Brooks they quit life and they sold everything, and they were going to travel along America, and she loses everything the very first night in a casino. Albert Brooks rates her about, honey, we had a nest egg. Where's the nest egg? It's all about the nest egg. And then she has to go to the casino owner's office, and it's Gary Marshall, and she has to go, well, we had a nest egg, and we don't get our nest egg back. It's very funny. And of course, whenever I hear nest egg, I only think of Made in America.
That's amazing.
And basically, we hear Nick and Mallory talking about starting to form a nest egg so that they can get married. And of course, Stephen has every stock joke in the world that we've heard before about getting married. And Alex is freaked out that Nick's not a bad guy, and I'm really tired. It's just a tiring joke. He's not a bad guy. That's all I can say. He's not a bad guy.
No, and so I just want to bring up the fact that they almost eloped in an episode a few seasons ago, and it seems that the show itself is acting like that did not happen, which is ridiculous.
Right, as if they haven't been pre-warned that there's a possibility that the 2 of them are serious with each other.
And what is nest egg in this read? Like, is nest egg supposed to be that they can't count on Social Security to? No,
I think nest egg is just some money so that they can get married, maybe pay for the wedding, maybe have a home, maybe buy a home, put a down payment on something. Just something to get started with.
Right.
we cut right back into the house again, and Andy is still a dog in the second scene. There's a very tired little age joke about dogs' ages, where Andy says he's 7, and in dog years he's 42, and Stephen goes, "Yeah, in dog years I'm 216, and your mother is 320." Ah, whoa, that's funny.
And it's amazing because
Totally out of character.
Meredith Baxter hits him so hard because she's pissed off in this episode.
It seemed angry. It was another one of those moments. It just seemed angry. She hit him, and then makes another. Oh, and she doesn't look a day over 153.
Which is what? I don't know, 20 something, right?
It's just awful.
I can't do the math.
Yeah. Nick and Mallory walk in. Hey, we did it. We sold it, and we made $2. Well, sets off a light bulb above Alex P. Keaton when he hears Nick made a quick $200 on, of course, as Alex sees it, that piece of junk.
So this now to Alex seems like it's a no-lose, low investment, high reward business venture. Dun dun dun.
Right. I'm gonna turn him into a business. Now, and of course Nick responds with the no, I'm an artist, and Alex responds with, "Oh, grow up."
Yeah. This episode sort of invents not eBay. What's the one that
Etsy?
all of Etsy? Yes, this episode invents Etsy.
Mm-hmm. It's just mass-produced artwork. Everybody can do their arts and crafts and sell it. So point something out, and I do post Weinsteinian era, and I'm hyper aware of the climate of a post-in era. These nipples were hard as rocks in the scene, Paul.
I totally missed that. That's amazing.
Check. Are you of the impression that the lovely what's her name?
Justine Bateman.
Justine Bateman was older than 18 at this time? Are we supposing at this time that she was over the age of consent?
She was. No, but I just didn't even notice it, because usually when something like that happens, we all notice it.
It was cold in the studio. That's all I can say. It's just she was just wearing a thin sweater, and yeah, you go back, check it out. She's wearing a light blue sweater, and it's just a reason I think of Friends and with Jennifer Aniston's nipples the entire season. So
right, or Mallory was just so enthused and titillated by the powers of capitalism that she
was titillated. Pardon the thought of her boyfriend, fiance into a business. Yes. But of course, Alex is willing to do this for the mere price of 25%. So he wants Nick to create mass-produced artwork. He's going to do none of the work, 25% of the profits.
Well, he's the agent, manager, and so 25% is not crazy, I would imagine, right? But like at the same time, I just want to point out that one of my favorite artists, Andy Warhol, was very much one to ingratiate mass production with art, with his silk screening of his paintings and making multiple versions of the same art piece to sell to people. He was, pop and postmodern and all these sorts of things. And so his idea was that art could be just like any other commercial good. And he would take commercial goods, like obviously the Campbell soup can and all that kind of stuff. I don't think a lot of artists work that way, but it's just interesting to find someone who really internalized, him being from Pittsburgh, the sort of factory aesthetic into art.
Exactly, and that's exactly what they did in this episode. Is took a factory aesthetic, sort of sets in this very next scene that we transition to. Alex sets him up. What I didn't realize was it was their garage. It's the Keaton's garage that he's set in, right?
Oh yeah, holy shit, you guys! We see the Keaton's garage in this episode.
I know they spent big money, big bucks on the Keaton garage. Alex sets him up and blithely says as he's exiting, "I want 35 of these by tonight." Now, this is where once again you dumbed Alex down once again to being a fucking moron. Like, okay, Alex, you know it doesn't take him. And then Nick even says, "Hey, it took me a month to make one." And then Alex like changes, "Okay, 25 by tonight."
Yeah, you know what? It would have made an interesting scene, and instead of letting this scene as it is, founder into nonsense, the way to do this scene is Alex thinks that making this art is just a factory thing, so he ensues the help of all the other family members. He has Nick teach them what the design looks like, and then has everybody paste the thing, put on the dice.
Like his workshop. Exactly. It could have been a very physically funny scene to have watched them choreograph making one of these things, almost like a Lucy show. It would have been funny. But it seems as though funny is the opposite of what these writers are after.
Yeah, what they're after is filling 24 minutes.
I don't get it. This whole scene is just so not funny. Nothing works. Alex's idea is to take the idea of the spirit of Columbus, which is the name of the sculpture, and we're going to buddy from anywhere using the name of the place that they're from. So if you're from Pittsburgh, it's the spirit of Pittsburgh. If you're from Hollywood, it's the spirit of Hollywood. Isn't that a great idea? And you can just see in Nick's face that he's totally uninterested with this. He likes the idea of making more money, but he's totally uninterested in this. And Nick even says, "I can't work that way." And explains to Nick how it has to work that way. And then he thinks, okay, we're going to fabricate all the parts. We're going to have all the parts here, and then we're going to do it. And Alex turns sort of Nick into a one-person assembly line, which is what we thought would be a good idea, except we thought it would work funnier with 5 or 6 people doing it, especially if you got Andy into the scene and have Andy doing just a little thing at the very end. Could have been very funny.
Yes.
Instead, it's not.
No. And is this the commercial break where Alex tries to do it himself? Nick says, "That's not how you do it." And then they awkwardly leave the scene because it seemed like they ran out of dialogue that they'd written.
That's exactly right. It just peters out.
Yeah, and there's this moment where Michael J. Fox, as everyone else is walking out the garage door, he dances in order to be like, "I'm so annoyed that there isn't a funny line to end the scene. I'm going to start dancing."
He fills the moment. There's no moment, so he fills it.
Yeah, yeah.
With something nonsensical.
He's a consummate artist. And with that, we'll be right back. All right. And we're back. So
I was going to tell you a couple of interesting things. First of all, I read online the show that my son works on, American Housewife, which is on ABC. I'll promote it one more time. Wednesday nights, 9:30, ABC. It's very good. It's right after Modern Family.
What percentage do you get for saying all this?
Absolutely nothing, but syndication, smelling it. I'm starting to smell syndication money down the line. So
you should tell them, start pitching them best of episodes. Be like, you should be doing clip shows, you guys.
No, that's great. We don't want any clip shows because the odds of Logan popping up and getting paid for a clip show is probably slim and none. So we want original written episodes. But I'm paying a lot more to the Twitter action about American Housewife because Logan's getting more involved with tweeting. And somebody tweeted that American Housewife appears to be a modern take on Family Ties.
Oh.
And I thought, notice that because the 3 kids on Modern Family are similar in a way to the 3 Keaton children. And they drew the comparison of that the male child, Oliver, in the Otto family is obsessed with money, like Alex P. Keaton, and has conservative values. The eldest child, Taylor, is a bit of an airhead. She's just not as bright as not the brightest bulb in the pack, like Mallory. And then the youngest child, what was the comparison on that one, Susanna?
It says like smart, sassy things.
It says smart, sassy things, like Jennifer.
Like Jennifer on a good.
Actually, a fairly good comparison to Family Ties.
That is a good comparison, and I would say the show also has a much better world that it's created because it's a single camera, and because shows are just better now.
and it did warm my heart last week when Logan was working. At one point, I looked over and I saw Logan throwing a football with director of the week, John Putch. But as we know and love him here on American Housewife, on Family Quality Time with Family Ties, Neil and Pete from 3 episodes in 1983, I believe.
Oh my God, he was the boyfriend to the girl that Alex lost his virginity to.
That's correct. So I looked over and it was like, I had one moment and I thought, wow, he's throwing a football with Edith Bunker's son. That was my first thought.
Wow.
He's throwing a football with Neil and Pete from Family Ties.
You should have. Did you call Logan Meathead or anything? Were you like, Meathead, come on? Oh, that's just what we call him, and then you could start talking about family, all in the family.
All in the family. That's what I talked to him about. All in the family.
Yes,
but thank God, this episode is coming to its rip-roaring conclusion at a breakneck speed, I might say, unless the second act, and I think it took me an hour and a half to watch the second act of this thing today because it was so dull.
Yeah, this first scene takes place in the garage again, but for some inexplicable reason, now they're having people come in like it's an art exhibit, as opposed to.
I'm going to stop because actually the first scene of the second act takes place in the kitchen. We're back in the kitchen again.
Oops, I'm sorry.
Yes, and the second scene takes place in the garage. But we start in the kitchen with Nick and Elise, where Nick comes over and he sort of pours his heart out to Elise that, oh my God, I this is horrible. I don't want to do this. Alex is making me crazy. And Elise actually starts to be sympathetic, but then is just angry because Alex then comes in and bends her ear and says, Mom, this is the guy who could marry your daughter. And all he does is have to say that. And she flips on a dime, gets angry and goes, you get going and you make him do more sculptures. Make him make sculptures.
It's so strange to me that like Steven and Elise Keaton hate Nick because he's an artist who doesn't necessarily plan on making a lot of money. These are two hippies that traveled the world, worked in the Peace Corps, went to college, and then traveled with babies, like backpacked through Europe.
It makes no sense. It's an antithesis to your actual central theme of the show. And that's why I find it so irritating every time they do something like this. It's like, have you lost sight of the very fiber of these beings that you created? You created them, and now you're cutting their legs off, and it makes no sense to me.
You know what, Corey? Maybe it's the most realistic thing that Family Ties ever did. Because as we all know, baby boomers are trash. And the way that they acted when they were in their teens and 20s, they then went on to make money and then cut the legs out from under their children and their grandchildren. So maybe this is exactly right.
Yeah, so maybe he was more prescient once again than we ever gave him credit for.
Yeah, yeah.
Alex is a very demanding boss in this, and he's really riding Nick quite hard. He wants him to make art by the bushel, I believe is his expression. He says people are gobbling up sculptures. Here's my question. Who the fuck are all these people gobbling up sculpture in Dayton, Ohio?
And how do people find out about it in other places around the country?
Prior to the internet.
Yes. I think we have to point that out. This is prior to the internet. So somehow people from New York or Seattle, as the case may be, hear about this art that's being made in a garage in Columbus and want to get in on the ground floor.
It just makes no sense to me. And of course, Alex, every speech Alex makes in this is once again Alex, the ultimate narcissist. I'm looking out for his future. Oh, Alex, you're looking out for your 25%. That's all you're looking out for.
You know what, though? As we see in this episode, Alex does a good job of managing because he keeps him to task. And when called to the floor during the art exhibit, the inexplicable art exhibit, he actually makes sales. Like he pitches
it. And I thought to myself, okay, that was all right. Actually, he did make a sale and he sort of did pitch it. And that's what we're cutting to right here. Because that scene is just so weird. Where basically the whole first scene is Alex selling Elise on being on his side. And then it's really not important for the rest of the episode. I don't know why it seemed like it was going to be important. And then they sort of dropped that whole thing like it was, wow, I got to get mom on board. Okay, he got mom on board. Big deal. Now what happens? Okay, now we cut to the garage and Alex is making sales and Nick is depressed. And that's pretty much the scene where Alex continues to make sales. And the more sales that Alex makes, the more depressed Nick is getting. And he's upset because Alex seems to be doing selling art like it's clothing. Oh, you want this in a medium? Oh, you want this 6 feet tall instead of 4 feet tall? You want it in red or blue or green or yellow? He'll do anything you want. Don't worry about that. Just place your order.
Yeah, and he's giving some like Andrew Carnegie, or no, what's his name? Dale Carnegie platitudes, where he's like, the customer's always right, and blah, blah, blah. And and it just burns, like Nick is getting burned out, and this old couple wants one that's in blue. And so at this point, he just goes crazy, yells at Alex, and then I don't know, what happens at the end of this scene? Do they just leave?
Yes, it's another very, very strange transition. All I wrote down is that's it. I won't sell out. Nick sort of has a I won't sell out moment with Alex at the end. And all I remember was the customers are all still swarming around the whole place. And we just sort of fade into the last scene in the kitchen. Which
Can I ask you a question about art? Do you know stuff about art?
Very little.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about art either. But like it always seems to me that with artists, the way that they make money is by getting patrons, rich people who hire them. Right.
And then have them do stuff on commission or consignment.
Yes. And that seems like it's been throughout history. That's how art has always worked.
Right. Certainly in the last, 100, 150 years, I think it's worked that way. Earlier we always used to hear about artists never even selling anything in their lifetimes, but I'm assuming that that's exactly how it worked even when Van Gogh was,
right. And you had like the Medicis in Italy during the Renaissance that they would hire people.
That's how Michelangelo, right. The Medicis hired Michelangelo to do their stuff for him.
And so it's weird to me that there's this weird, like, middle class misread of how art works. Like that's what Alex's problem is. He's using a middle class
mentality,
yuppie mentality of how hard work and factory ingenuity is how art needs to sell. When really, I think he would have been more. He should have been more knowledgeable of how art works. Or Nick would have been like, "Hey, don't you remember that time that rich lady was feting me all over Columbus?" Like, we need to find somebody to sell to who wants more.
They already had the realistic idea. This is the unrealistic idea of how art works. We've had both of those episodes now.
It's really weird, but like the first one was a more realistic look at like what.
It didn't bother us, Nitrin, and then it just became weirdly romantic behind the patron. If I remember correctly, is that what it was?
Yes, that's right.
But that was a lot, and she was rich, and it was just a lot more, okay, this is sort of kind of how it works, as opposed to this, where it's like, can I get this in a blue? Can I, with the character lady, and it just wasn't, it's not smart or realistic. We go to the kitchen here, and Alex is sort of browbeating Nick once again. Nick is saying that money isn't everything. Taken aback by that realization. Money isn't everything, and Alex is begging him to do it his way. Do it his way, and Nick tells him that your way doesn't let me explore my life as an artist. That is the exploration of it and letting him do it. And then Nick has a very long, impassioned speech, which he delivers very, very well, but is such a shit and says absolutely nothing, where he has to basically stand there and say, I'm a good person, Alex. Haven't you noticed I've been dating your sister for a good long time? Fucking credit. I'm a good person. And you know what? That's not fair. Why should he have to explain that to Alex? I'd just be angry at Alex that Alex didn't pick up on the fact that Nick's a good person. He loves his sister, and he is an artist, and he is selling his art. So what's there to make fun of? Nothing.
Yeah, it feels like this argument is coming from, like, in a realistic way, a wellspring of shit that, like, that you've had this relationship going on for a while where you both hate each other, and then all of a sudden you're like, why did you not put the toothpaste up to the top? Why did you leave it at the bottom? Well, you know what? You're a fucking idiot, and I hate that you didn't finish college. And you're just like, wait, what is happening? It started with toothpaste. But, like, yeah, this argument that they're having makes no sense and seems way deeper than it should have been.
Absolutely. And then you have Nick having to actually dumb it down for Alex by starting with the, snowflakes, they're completely unique, and that's why they're interesting. And, fingerprints, they're completely unique, and that's why they're interesting. And, of course, Alex doesn't get that. So Nick has to dumb it down even further and say, you know how $2 bills aren't the same? And okay, so he's got $2 bills and he shows him, and of course we all know $2 bills aren't the same because they have different secretaries of the Treasury, different serial numbers, different mints that make it. Alex tries to swipe the $2 bills of Nick.
Now, this is, to me, maybe the funniest physical comedy that I've seen on this show all season. I laughed out loud when that happened. I was like, when it happened, because Michael J. Fox smells it like an insane person. Smells money. You know how money, you don't know where it went, and when you touch it, there's disease all over it. He sniffs it, and then, like, the most amazing David Blaine street magician just starts pocketing the money. He takes out his wallet from inside his jacket, and Nick's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh, sorry." And then he does like RoboCop, like twirling his wallet and puts it back in.
I don't even know what to say. So ridiculous. And then they enjoyed that moment so much. Go out on the whole show with basically the setup for that whole joke again.
Yeah, exactly. It's the worst ending of an episode I think I've ever seen.
So Character Lady walks in the open back door of the Keaton house.
And I'm like, where is this going? What does she want? What's she gonna say? How can you top the moment we just had? And she says, what does she want?
She wants the sculpture made in a certain specification. With a salmon with the locks on it instead. And, of course, then he goes, well, do you have $2 bills? And Nick and Alex have a little take to each other. And it's like, wah, 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 freeze frame.
Now, let me just ask you, what is the logic here in Alex doing that? Because she says, hey, I want 5 of these in tan with monkey paws on them. And he's like, give me $2 bills. Because what is the explanation he's going to give her? You know what, lady, here's the thing about your 5 pieces. We're 2 different people, Nick and I. So, and then he just like...
I thought he was asking for a $2 deposit on 30 sculptures.
That would have made sense.
I was taking it literally. Why do you want $2? Oh, just so you can set up this bad joke again. That's why.
This episode is so bad because the writers didn't care and they gave it no thought. Again, I feel like there were so many missed opportunities of what could have been an easy rewrite on this episode. Nick as an actor was fine. Michael J. Fox seemed like he had a cold, and he seemed very low key. And Meredith Baxter must have been having some issues happening that week at work or in life, because she was very pissed off and not like Elise.
Mm-hmm.
Bad episode.
Bad.
Rate and review our show on iTunes. For questions and comments, email us at qualitytimefamilyties@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at QTWFT for updates, and you can follow each of us. I'm at Paul Packler.
I'm at Corpep, and Scott's at Follow Jones.
And if you listen to this episode and you're like, who's Scott Jones? I don't even remember what his voice sounds like anymore. Go listen to our last episode where he joined us for the first time in years. You can also like our page on Facebook. We'd like to thank our host and producer, Barbara Dillon at Fanbase Press. Fanbase Press is a comic book publisher and online community supporting other creators and fans through daily reviews, interviews, and podcasts that span the pop culture spectrum. Check them out, fanbasepress.com. We'd like to thank Perry Adams, who beautifully performs Family Ties and our theme song, Without Us. Check out Perry's website, perryadams.com. We'd like to thank Bryant Dillon, who created our fantastic drawing and artwork as well as edits our show. Bryant is the president and co-founder of Fanbase Press. Follow him on Twitter at Comic Book Slayer. And finally, Sean Foster, Fanbase Press's graphic designer, for designing our logo. Gang, we will see you next week. Bye!
La 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 la!